What's today? 14th? 14th. Boom, 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 boom. Yep, that is my new custom song for today. Welcome. Mark Kulak, Housatonic.live, episode 1405. I'm just going to blast right into this one here. Titling this one, Citizen Journalism via Social Media is a Hoax. But population pyramids are real. What do we mean by that? When I started this journey, as I have said many times, well over 10 years ago right now, over 10 years ago right now, it started because my family was seeing how drug addiction was becoming more of a problem in the United States, how it was impacting our family. Again, today is November 14th, 2025. And I remember we would watch the news, local news up here in Massachusetts, wondering why the drug overdose crisis wasn't getting more airtime. And every once in a while, there would be a story, maybe small, albeit could have been a single overdose or something. And we would be like, wow, we got to watch the news tonight. They're actually going to mention something about it. And this was 2014, 2015, approximately. And it was already impacting our family. And it only got progressively worse from there. So that's what encouraged me to want to investigate for my own and try to understand what was going on. And it never really initially was intended to be being part of the news. Although as I increasingly dipped my toes deeper into it and then got up into my ankles, I at least was hoping that I could take my career, which was in tech, research, analysis, investigation, so on, at least contribute information and data to help other people who did have a career in it. And for a long time, I've maintained this belief because of what I saw on the internet, on Twitter, on online news channels, on online CNN and online Fox and whatever other channels I was seeing at that time, that there could be such a thing as an independent citizen journalist. I believed this. And because I saw it, I believed it, and I worked towards it because I saw it. Now, there's a lot of things that we believe in the world, and when I started this journey, many things which I now have absolutely no doubt were never real. I believed back at that time that they were real. Hopefully I worded that right, but as of right now, I have no doubt that they are fake. One of those things would be atomic weapons. I just don't believe in them. If you look at just look at all of the evidence about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 10 ways till Sunday, you don't even need to get into the details of the physics. Just talking about all of the challenges with delivery and testing, the progression of the technology, and so on. There's not to even mention various other parts of logistics and the physics, and it's an open and shut case that atomic weapons just don't exist. However, enriched uranium is the most fantastic way to be able to store massive quantities of energy in a small footprint and put them in a form which can be used to power the computers of the future, which is really what's going on right now as the world fights over these particular resources. Now that I have progressed over these 10 years from why nukes must be real to now going, they're absolutely not real, no way. I would not attempt to build a nuclear weapon now because I saw a lot of movies in my past that they're real. At some point, if my understanding of this concept progressed from it's totally real to it's totally not real, why would I, at some point after that transition, then try to start making one? I wouldn't. They don't exist. And at some point, I have to come to the realization that citizen journalism is not real. Now, there are people who think it's real because they can be given certain amounts of money, they can be given an advertiser, they can be led to believe that they're actually working independently, but they're not. The truth is that this is really an art form that doesn't exist. There might be a couple of people, maybe, who are kind of doing it for real. And for real, I mean you can pay all the bills and raise a family on it. Maybe. But I think there still needs to be additional funds available. There still needs to be some assistance. There still needs to be some acceptance that there's things that you say and there's things that you don't say. I believe that no one is doing it for real, and I mean 100% for real. No hidden donors, no hidden strings. I don't think it's ever been done. Similarly, there's never been an atomic weapon. So at some point, there needs to be a next step of, okay, so now that I know there are no atomic weapons, why would I build one? Why would I attempt to build one? And if there is no such thing as being an independent citizen journalist who, can have legitimately enough income and not have to take bribes, not have to take money in order to maintain certain positions, why would I try to be one? I'm not saying that the output isn't valuable. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this model doesn't really exist. The entire world of social media was really not intended for independent people to provide truthful positions on things. It was able to accommodate that belief. It was able to accommodate people that were going to try, but it was never that was never its intent. I guess it was understood that some people would try, but there's enough ways in the system to be able to shut it off. So citizen journalism via social media, and I'm saying via social media, electronic social media, internet, it's hoax may not be the best word, but I think it kind of gets the point across. It just doesn't exist. I had one donor at one point who was very generous. They gave me $1,500 a month, $1,000 to $1,500 a month, and then it went down to $750 and eventually went zero. And I had them for about a year and a half, and they weren't upfront about it, but they had one position. Don't trust China, and that's it. China's taking over the world. That was their only thing that they needed me to keep doing. Now, I never believed that. So I gave them several hours, maybe a couple dozen hours, listening to their ideas and trying to integrate it in. But I never really believed it. And then eventually that's why they stopped. They don't give a penny anymore. They're gone. And I think that there's many channels that may have donors and may have support like that. You listen to the donors, you listen to the support, and they'll say, trust this person, don't trust that person, talk about this, don't talk about that. And if you can, and maybe I'm just inflexible, I'm just too inflexible, that I just don't want to live like that. I don't know, but I've made a decision that I'm going to do what I feel as though needs to be done. And more often than not, I can see, based upon rage and threats, what I'm supposed to, what I'm not supposed to talk about. Clearly, the third rail is India. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind anymore. They're talking about the India's growth, economically, demographically, political infiltration into the United States is the ultimate third rail, and I believe it has tentacles that connect to other things. And as I alluded yesterday, and I don't believe everyone from India is in on this, or everyone Indian ancestry, whatever. And by the way, I'm actually more pointedly upset at Americans that are willing to take the money to facilitate this than I am India. I have no problem. I encourage all countries to try to grow and be prosperous for the benefit of their own people, and through competition, everyone lives a better life. I am very pointedly most disgusted at Americans that are willing to take the money for their own benefit, or stupid enough to think that they're somehow helping their country by taking the money. Those are the people that I'm most upset about. In the United States, I believe that the drug epidemic is predominantly due to Americans selling out America, as well as how would you say, global governance, which right now is with a very, very heavy hand coming out of India. It is what it is. And why is that such a ridiculous thing to say? That the most prosperous country in the world, that has been historically far more at the root of most trade routes than Israel ever was, and is the third largest economy, and is in 10 to 15 years or so going to be the world's largest economy, and has right now at least several seats in the United States Congress filled with people born from their country, and current controls the National Institutes of Health in the United States. How is it so ridiculous to suggest that that's a country that is in a position right now to really be the hub of global governance? It's actually absurd to think that any other country would be. So that is a third rail, and the way that the news cycles have gone lately have driven me internally bananas. I struggle to see, and one thing that has helped me cool off a little bit is to see and just accept that there is no real citizen journalism right now. If there was, there would be people talking about the most important thing, the largest loss of life event in the United States of America, the drug epidemic, and then number two, right behind it, would be an engineered a coronavirus pandemic and hospital protocols that killed lots of people. No one will talk about it. Left or right, nobody will talk about it. And either side of this fractured, it never really existed in the first place, conservative party, nobody will talk about it. They're all focused on something else, and through their focus on that something else, they are effectively enabling more death and more sadness and more horrors in the future for America's youth every day that they ignore the most important things. But they're not doing it just because they want to cause pain. They're doing it because they value their money. And I guess they just don't have enough manhood to do what's right. So they take the money, and that's what they want to talk about first. And I put this first because, this is something that's been weighing heavy on me this week. It's and the runaway train focusing on everything other than what's the most important thing, and the willingness, the eagerness that people just accept lies and don't have critical thinking makes me wonder. How do I even fight this battle? How can people actually believe the stuff that they're being told right now? Anyways, we can go over a lesson though here, and that is because India is the third rail, is the dreaded, scary third rail. That you can go to Wikipedia and you can learn about something called a population. Population pyramid. And this is what a population pyramid is. I'll zoom in on it a little bit, okay? A population pyramid is a chart where it shows. So now it comes in halves, okay? You can see there's a line down the middle, right down the middle, and usually on the left side, this represents a population of men, and on the right side, I'll get my head out of the way, you can see that's the population of women. And the length of how far the colors go from the center line, okay, at the bottom represents relatively how many people in this group, okay, in this group, which usually represents a country, are of a certain age range. So what you can see here is that this is a world population pyramid actually, but this shows, if you zoom in, let's see here. This one's a little bit more confusing because it has multiple centuries on it. But let's look at this. You can see the green here. There's a green and then there's a yellow. So that represents 2018. So this means that in the year 2018, if you follow this line down, 2018, there were, you can see these are these dotted lines here going from top to bottom, 70 million, 60 million, 50 million. This means that there were about 70 million people born, men born in the world in the year 2018. And if you look on the other side, it means that there were approximately 70 million women born in all countries around the world in 2018. Now, in each subsequent year, okay, a nation or a continent or the world may have a different number of children born. The number may go up or the number may go down, or it may be approximately the same. If there was maybe a famine, if there was some other horrific social turmoil, if there was something which caused people to have less babies, less families, okay, then the following year, you may notice that it's not as many children. Or maybe a country is very prosperous as far as birth rate goes. Now, of course, these days we associate prosperity with, how many houses and water skis that you have, and how much money is in your retirement account, and how much fancy food you can eat, and how many restaurants you can go to, and all of that other garbage. Which, I mean, it's fun to have some joys in life, but at the same time, we're not actually we actually consider having big families as being poor right now, sadly. So if you go to Africa, they're really poor. They only have 8 kids per family or something, right? But if you have a society that has a lot of children, then in the following year there may be even more kids. Now, if there was 70 million men born, yes, let's just say 70 million men born in the year 2018, and then there's 70 million women born in the year 2018. I might have said 60 before, but let's just go with 70, okay? Then that means that in the following year, there's going to be still more or less 70 million men now that are 1-year-old and 70 million women that are 1-year-old. Probably a little bit less because of accidents, because of infant mortality and so on. But it will never go up. All the children that were born in 2018, okay, that they start off at 0, in the year 2019, you will not have a number greater than that of 1-year-olds. And then in 2020, you will not have a number greater than that of 2-year-olds. At best, everybody lives, it's the same number, but usually it goes down a little bit each year. And then in 3 years, okay, what are we now? 2022, you're going to have maybe a little bit less. Now, eventually, this group of children, as they become 5, 8, 10, 12, 15, 18, 20, 25, is reaching an age where they, in turn, can have children of their own. They could have children of their own. Now, some societies like Japan and many European countries, Russia, sadly, many places in the United States right now, you need to focus on your career. You need to pay off your bills first, So there's a lot of discouragement amongst many people right now to have children. But usually, aside from these modern which is really 100 years or so pressures to have less and less children. When people get into an age of having children, they tend to more often than not have some children. Some people may only have 1 or 2, now which is today considered a big family. Or you may have many children. I don't know. And then they in turn become the next grouping, starting all the way down at 0 and then 1 and so on and so forth. A population pyramid gives you a way to be able to visualize how many people a country has, okay, and what percentage of that country is currently, how would you say, in the youth range, meaning babies, 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, incapable of having children, incapable of working, usually using a lot of resources as far as educating and food and so on. There's no output yet. It's all you have to invest. And it also gives you an idea of what percentage of population is very old. Once people become in their 70s, and in their 80s, yeah, you can keep working. You're not having babies anymore. Maybe some men, creepy men, can have babies. But for the most part, you're not having babies anymore, okay? You could still be working, but then time catches up with you physically. You start to get weaker. Now you need more and more resources. You're living off of your retirement. If you're fortunate, you have had children, and now you have some grandchildren to keep you going. But you are now, and your time remaining is limited. You're going to age out because eventually after 100, it becomes almost zero. It's gone. So we are all right now on a conveyor belt, starting off in a big group and getting to progressively smaller groups. Population pyramids mean that if a country goes a few years having very few numbers of children, then in 20 to 30 years, that is the bandwidth of capacity of that nation to have more children. So if a country says, let's not have any kids for, matter of fact, like China, let's go 30 years and only have one kid per family. And what has happened is not only did you reduce the number of children being born, but now you have a serious problem of having very few children in certain age groups, which can even biologically have more children. Okay. So population pyramids tell you the future. You can predict the future of a country by looking at a population pyramid. And this has been known for a long time. It's been known since the 1940s. This has been known for at least 80 years. I'm sure people have looked at population pyramids before. I haven't looked at the history of researching with population pyramids, but it has been known since the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, at the very least, what the trends were. Now, whether or not government policy was made based upon those population pyramids, I think it's reasonable to believe that in the 1950s, there still were not policy changes being made based upon population pyramids, aside from maybe a very general concern about too many people at some point, which wasn't necessarily an irrational thing to be concerned about. I'm sure that they was spoken about, and of course, if you have exponential growth forever and ever, which you just can't, eventually something is going to kick in. But I think it might have even been somewhat well-intended, although I'm usually a bad person for giving people the benefit of the doubt in many cases, as vile as I can be at times. But this is what a population pyramid is. And every citizen journalist who is supposedly capable of doing research and analysis should, at least every once in a while, pop one on the screen or know what the word is. Not because every citizen journalist should be involved in demographics, but every citizen journalist, especially these days, talks very frequently about trends regarding populations, about a depopulation. Anyone that has ever used the word depopulation, ever, is automatically suggesting right up front that they are talking population pyramids. And if they've never shown you a population pyramid or incapable of analyzing a population pyramid, then they should never talk about depopulation, because a population pyramid is how one would understand population trends. And as far as I know, I have never, ever seen any conspiracy researcher out there, citizen journalist, say the word depopulation and then show you a population pyramid. They just throw it out there and then they say it's Masons, Mormons, Israelis, Jews, something or other, Venetians, Egyptians, pyramids. I don't know. There's probably some way to be able to say that with a little bit of, you put it through the auto-tune, and before you know it, I have the next big hit from Lord coming out there, right? Anyways, these are population pyramids. Using population pyramids, it was known as Jonathan Cooey has shown as his show, that the United States was going to have an increase in the number of people dying in the future. So let's look at let's just look at United States demographics. Usually, there is a population pyramid picture on Wikipedia for every nation. More for the most part. There are some other websites that allow you to make some really incredible animated population pyramids. I should review those at some point. Now, the United States it's not really a pyramid. It's kind of straight, with some feathered edges, and then it gets to be a cone up on top. Zooming in on the population pyramid of the United States, you can see that, and this is, I believe, for 2024. Last year, the United States had 1,750,000 men born, or male babies, and approximately 1,750,000 female babies. So we have about 3.5 million babies born last year in the United States of America. That's a little bit less than the previous year. In the previous year, it looks like, and again, I'm guessing here, we don't have the number popping up on the screen, but it looks like about 1,800,000 male babies and about 1,800,000 female babies. If you go back 7 or 8 years, we had 2 million male babies being born per year and 2 million female babies being born per year. If you go now, as of the current date, 2024, we have approximately 2,200,000 30-year-old men in the United States of America. Now, the United States has a lot of immigration, so it's difficult how to factor that in. So allow me to just, ignore that for a moment, which is a little bit irresponsible, but I'm just trying to keep it simple. Okay, we know that it's a big part of the story, but let's just assume that a certain percentage of the 30-year-olds in the United States right now are immigrants. Let's say 10% of all 30-year-olds in the United States right now were not born in the United States. I don't know if that's the right number or not, but let's ballpark it. That would mean that we've had about 2 million or so, approximately, 2 million of that 2.2 million male 30-year-olds, about 2 million were born as male babies in the United States of America 30 years ago, approximately. But because of deaths from accidents, deaths from drug overdoses, deaths from who knows what else, there were in reality probably about 2.1 million male babies born 30 years ago, which would have been 1995. So 1995, we had about 2 million male babies born. In 1995, we had in the United States, about 2 million female babies born. So back in 1995, this population chart would have shown a little over 2 million right there as zero, and 2 million on the female side. But now, clink, 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 30 years later, that bar has progressed up to here. Now, the United States population pyramid, because we have a large amount of people coming into the United States of America relative to many countries, means that we can actually have growth in certain age bands, which is not due to our own births. Okay, it's because of people coming into the United States. Now, there are some people who have left the United States. I wish a few more would leave. I mean, actually, no, let me change that, okay? I wish nobody left the United States. I wish the United States was so awesome that people that were here just loved it so much and appreciated it and wanted it to stay awesome. And we're hoping that the United States continues to provide support with our capabilities to the people who truly need it and attract the best talent around the world. That's actually what I really do want, okay? as an American first vision. But this shows that, how that happens over time. Now, eventually, those 30-year-olds are going to become 60-year-olds. Now, currently, the United States of America has about 2.1 million male 60-year-olds and about 2.2 million female 60-year-olds. These charts, by the way, they show a little extra coloring where there's excess. So what this chart shows that right now there's more males in these lower age groups. Like in 20-year-olds, there are females. And that's mostly because the United States has, through immigration, most immigrants that come to the United States are males and not females. And I think that is a huge problem with immigration policy. Strong, and if people really are from strong, war-torn nations, I don't want males coming to the United States from war-torn nations. If a nation has some sort of civil war and the population at risks and need to migrate, the men should be strong enough to send their women and their children first, and they should stay behind. That's typically what happens. So I'm not a big believer that the immigrants that come to the United States really are escaping some sort of horrible situation if the men come first and leave the women and children behind. Either they're lying about the situation, they're brought here opportunistically almost as slave labor, or something else is going on. That's just not the way it should be. Sorry, it is what it is, okay? And if you think that is an insulting thing, I encourage you to sound clip that and promote it heavily. Use your retirement savings to promote that and make me a bad guy that's so popular as a bad guy that there's billboards about me and Candace Owens is yelling about me. That would be a fantastic thing to do. It won't happen, of course. At some point, you realize that citizen journalism is a hoax, and that I could do almost anything on the air right now. The only reason I maintain the integrity that I do is not because I believe it's going to pay off in me disproving the citizen journalism is a hoax story. It's simply because I have family, and that's it. That's really it. Anyways, because men eat poorly, men working as roofers fall off the roof, men working as police officers get shot, men are more prone to die of drug overdoses, and so on. Women tend to live longer than men. So in the older age groups, you'll see that there's usually an excess of women and not men. The population pyramid of the United States, it's not really a pyramid. Again, it's sort of bow. There's a pyramid up on top because every year there's less and less people still alive. Of course, this shows that in the 100-year range, there's only, maybe 20,000 males and 80,000 females alive in the United States who are 100 years old or older. Clearly, 100 years ago, there were more than 50,000 males and 80,000 females born. That's because of the millions that were born back then. These are the only ones that are left. So a population pyramid can show you the future. Now, let's look at Canada. Could be tricky because Canada, again, has a lot of immigration. But let's look at Mexico. Mexico is interesting because Mexico doesn't have a ton of immigration. But Mexico does have a strong birth rate. Okay, I should say growth rate. Oh, and by the way, the United States does have about 342 million people, approximately. This is a projection right now because our last census was 2020, about 342 million people. So let's look at the Mexico demographics. I do not have a chat window open up right now. Demographics of Mexico. Now, Mexico has a solid population pyramid. No. There we go. Excellent. Look at that one. Yeah, as you can see, right? It's big at the bottom and it's thin at the top. Mexico last year had approximately 1 million, looks like 1.1 million children born that were male, and about 1.15. Let's go with 1.1 million children were born that were male last year, and about 1.1 million babies born that were female. So Mexico had 2.2 million children born. The United States had 3.3 million. So Mexico's rate of children being born is it's about 60-70% of the United States. And we can see that it's pretty solid. Now, whereas the United States actually has slightly more people in their 30s and to 50s than children, Mexico, on the other hand, has less people in their 30s to 50s than young people. So what this means is that in Mexico, families tend to be bigger. Not everyone has children, but of the people that do have children, they probably are having 3 to 4 children per family, maybe even more. That means that the people in the middle of the population pyramid, as they are going through the we can have children years, the length of the bars down at the bottom are bigger. So that's a growing population. Now, you can have debates about what the perfect population pyramid is. If a population pyramid is not bigger at the bottom than it is up on top, then it's a population that is doomed to collapse. And near the hundreds, there's almost no one in Mexico that's 100 years old or older. I think because they drink a lot of Coca-Cola and I don't know. Their health care may be not as good. Who knows? Whatever the case, Mexico's population is growing, and Mexico has a relatively solid population pyramid. I would actually say it's desirable to have a population pyramid like closer to Mexico than of the United States. Now, another population pyramid that's easier to understand would be China. Now, China, remember, had a long period of time where, because of the evils of Henry Kissinger, they were encouraged to have one child per family. So, China demographics. Now, China, some people say China lies about its population. I don't know. Now, China does not really have a population pyramid at all. If I may be a little bit off color, its population pyramid actually kind of looks like a Chinese building. It has a little bit of an Oriental architecture to it. But look down below. Now, first off, China has the total population of China, before we dig into this, is 1,408,000,000. If that number is right, that means that there are about 4 people in China for every 1 American. About 4 people in China. Now, if I say if you hear China has 4 times the population as the United States of America, you would think that China would have 4 times the old people, 4 times the working class people or age people, 4 times the number of children, right? That's what you would think, because you think everyone kind of has, same number of kids, then we get older, accidents happen, and so on. You would expect there to be similar layouts in every country. But let's inspect this more closely. Last year, China had about 6 million male babies born and about 6 million female babies born. So last year, China had 12 million children born. 12 million. Now, the United States had what did we come up with? 3.3 million, 3.5 million approximately. And China has about 11 million. So even though China has at 1.48 or 8 billion, okay, even though China has a massive quantity more of overall people, 4 times the people, their birth rate is surprisingly low. Actually, let me make sure I got that right here. Let me whip out a pen. I know I got a pen around here somewhere. I should anyways. So we have about 11 million people, and they have 1.408 billion. Let me whip out a little calculator over here. I should have a I should have a calculator in my shortcut. Of course, I don't. But if we have, 11 million divided by 1,408. I always do this math wrong. That is less than what? Less than one child per 100 people or something like that. I mean, that is a negative birth rate. That's very low. But it gets worse for China because this is actually their lowest birth rate in 20 years. In fact, their birth rate was even 20 years ago, which would have been 2005 right now, their birth rate was closer to 22 million. Now, it went up for a few years, but now it's going down again. It's a very interesting pattern. Why is it going down again? Well, usually people are in the age where they can have children in their 20s to their mid-40s. Men can be older, of course. But there's a cruel limit on how old women can be when they can have children. This is it's uncomfortable stuff to talk about, but this is a biological reality. Okay, we can't. Yeah, there are some medical miracles allowing women who are 50 to have a child, but it's just biologically, it just doesn't happen that often. Many women struggle to have children after age 38. So in the United States right now, we have a terrible situation. Sorry to jump around a little bit, where we have women in their early 20s, and I see some relatives of mine right now who, I just need to pay off my bills, I need to catch up with college, and I'm thinking that the clock is ticking. I'm not saying that you're going to be in the elderly home tomorrow, but the window at which you are healthy enough and your back still doesn't hurt to have children and raise them and do what's required is very little when you really think about it. And societies are more interested in helping people pay off their college loans than they are in facilitating this. This is horrible. So in China, this age range here, if you look at 30, 35 to 50, there's kind of a massive drop here. There are for example, 45-year-olds, people who are exactly age 45, okay, there are only about 20 million people in that bandwidth in China. And then but if you look at the elderly, look at people who are, let's just say 58 years old, there are, in China, let's do this math, there are 26 million people in China, about 13 million males, 13 million females, 26 million people in China that are 58 years old and older. Whereas, let's go to the United States. Let's look at the United States population pyramid again. United States. Sorry. What happens is I'm trying to look into the camera still, and I got a keyboard down here, and I got books putting my hands in places where piles of books in front of me where they usually aren't. United States demographics. So the U.S. at age 58, we have, that's 2, right? So the United States has 4 million people who are age 58, approximately. The United States has 4 million people who are age 58, about 2 million males and 2 million females. China has 26 million people who are age 58. 26 million to 4 million. So even though the United States has only 25% of the population that China does, okay, China has a huge chunk of people that right now are almost 60 years old. Now, these 60-year-old people can still work at factories. They can still work at businesses. They can be grandparents, but they can't have many more children. And in fact, their working years are limited. Maybe they can do certain tasks, But in 20 years, they're not going to be working at factories, if working at all, once they're 80 years old. What's going to happen to them? And the number of children being born is very small. They only need so many of them to be grandparents. Not to mention the people who are be able to make the population for the future of China is in this range here. They're basically between 45 and right now 15 right now, or 18, and it's going down. Now, there's another problem with the population pyramid, is that it implies where labor is going to be used, how labor will be used in the future. As people get older, they need more assistance. They need more help. Sometimes just doing everyday stuff, cleaning, cooking, getting out, staying mobile, physical therapy. They might need more medical procedures. The cost of elderly people is high. It is. I didn't say that the elderly are a tax, which we should view as a tax. What I'm saying is the beauty of aging is the fact that it uses, is accompanied with more resource consumption, especially if people age and are not healthy. So in China, they are going to have a large percentage of their population get older, which in turn means it's going to require more labor to care for them. The impact of that is that now China, when people are in their prime, when they should be having families, there's going to be political unrest of, should the country just let old people live alone and not be able to feed themselves so that people can still have families and children? Or should taxes go up because people who are of childbearing age need to spend more time caring for the elderly? One of the side effects of having a bad population pyramid or an inverted population pyramid like this is that instead of people having more time or having the resources and the time to have more children, they now focus it more on the elderly care, which then means even more smaller children in the future. It's a little bit like the deflationary spiral. In fact, it is exactly the same as with respect to currency, a deflationary spiral. As the value of assets go down, as the strength of fiat currency strengthens, what that means is that the less you spend, the more your savings are worth in the future, which means people are encouraged to spend even less, which in turn feeds more deflation, and so on and so forth. Deflationary spirals are almost impossible to get out of in fiat currency without printing and without putting the money into circulation. So now let's look at a country that actually has an absolute. China is in bad shape. It is expected that by the end of the century, by the end of the year 2100, China's overall population will go from 1,400,000,000 down to 800 million, or possibly even as low as 600 million, because so many people will die. Now, I shouldn't say, it's not just the fact that people are going to die, because everyone on that chart, including myself and you, are going to die, okay, as far as I know. Unless the unless ivermectin really is as awesome as they say it is. We're all doomed. So we are all temporary. We're all going down the conveyor belt one way or the other, okay? I don't even know what I was saying when I first started on that particular tangent rant. Trant, maybe I should call that. But they are, so many people will die because of, I should say, it's not that 800 million, 600 to 800 million people are going to die. It's the fact that everyone is going to die, and the total population that remains will be 600 to 800 million less, precisely because they won't have the capacity to have more children and care for those children because of the burden of their elderly population. Now, let's look at Japan. Japan is in really bad shape. Look at Japan's population pyramid. Japan, and I'm liking the way this is going so far. This is exactly, I think, what we needed here. And I repeat, I believe citizen journalism is a hoax. It remains a hoax until it is proven possible. I don't know how to prove it possible because, it's the system fights against it, and there's infiltration. There is so much more money than you think for people paid to infiltrate the world of citizen journalism and encourage who people listen to and don't listen to, and where people put their money and where people don't. There's probably as much money right now being spent on infiltrators that are in this very chat right now, maybe not this chat, but in many chats, as there are on the journalists themselves, because the idea is to steer people towards the nonsense. And maybe we can prove it wrong, but it is going to require a lot of discipline. And I have to be prepared, and we all have to be prepared, that citizen journalism may, just because we saw it done, just like we saw movies about atomic weapons, just because we saw movies about it, that doesn't mean it's ever going to be possible. At some point, it's just not possible. Maybe we just have to make a newspaper, and it has to be printed. Maybe it has to be a television show or a radio show that broadcasts over ham radio or something like that. Maybe it just needs to be different. Just because we saw it and believed other people were doing it, that doesn't mean it's actually achievable. It might not be. That doesn't mean I'm going to quit. What it does mean, though, is that what I was inspired by to do, what I'm doing right now, was never real in the first place. So I can't operate forever at the expense of everyone around me with the belief that it's just going to start working someday. Just like, just trying to keep hitting the hammer on a big pile of uranium, thinking that eventually it's going to blow up. It's not. So, Japan demographics. Japan has a perfectly inverted population pyramid. Look at that. So, Japan has 123 million people. It's down. It's now the 11th most populous nation in the world. And as you can see, starting for people that are age 50, every year there are less and less people of each age band. Now, Japan is notoriously, they use the word xenophobic, but I don't think xenophobic. It's not like everyone is, with the sheets pulled up to their eyeballs at night in Japan going, foreigners, I'm afraid. They just don't. It's just a country that doesn't have a lot of people moving from elsewhere. Okay, I don't think it's a fear thing. They just don't. And maybe the fact that they don't want it means it's not a very pleasant place to move unless you're, a 5'3" overweight, white guy that just likes to date, whatever. But anyways, in Japan, there are about 1 million males age 50 right now, and about 1 million females age 50. In fact, earlier we talked about 58-year-olds. Japan has, there's an interesting drop right there. Huh. I think that is not real. What does that correspond to? 58? 58? What's the year? By the way, what year is this from? This is from 2023. So 2023, if you take 58 off of it, that would be the year 1950 something. So this is not the atomic bomb. I don't know what that drop is there. Some other type of event. There was an age drop. There was a missing group in there. But let's do the 57-year-olds just as a point of reference here. There are 800,000. There's about 850,000 males that are age 58, and about 850,000 females, approximately. That's about 1.7 million. So there's approximately 1.7 million people in Japan right now that are in their 58th, whereas Japan has 20-something million, and the United States has 4 million, right? So Japan has, you can see, Japan has, 4 times the U.S. population, but 5 times as many people that are in that 58-something age range. Probably almost 6. Where in Japan, it's 1.7 million. But whereas the United States has almost as many people that are young, in the younger age bands as we do that are in our 50s. In Japan, last year there were only 400,000 males born and 400,000 females born, the lowest ever. And you know why it's going down? Because the people that are age 50 to 20 have to spend more time and energy caring for the people that are now 75, soon to be 85, and so on and so forth. So it's only going to get worse. And as medical technology allows people to live longer, okay, that means that even more energy gets sucked up by people who should be having families caring for the elderly. Once a population goes inverted, it has to become a top national priority to change it. And if it doesn't change, it's almost unstoppable. What this means is that Japan is on a pace to have even less people in the future. So right now, Japan has 1.23 million. I've heard estimates that by the end of the century, the year 2100, Japan will have 70 million people left. And most of them will be old. It gets worse over time. I know. This is not me coming off as a male that says women just need to have children. This is a reality, okay? A nation is the people that are in it. And this is what we talk about all day. We talk about culture, we talk about religions, and we talk about values, and we talk about people. If there are no people, there's nothing to talk about. We are people that came from other people. We are part of the process. And we need men and women, strong, powerful people of each that know when to have pride in themselves and their family, and then when to also understand bigger picture needs. And this has to be part of the conversation. And if nobody in a country wants to have a future, if they just say, let's just all get old together and say the heck with it, well, that's up to them, I guess. Okay, it's not a moral imperative, I suppose, but the future of a country is its people. And also, as people get older in a country, their quality of life depends far more on the young people of a country than anything else. You could have $1 trillion in the bank. If you're in a poor country that has nobody in it, you are dying alone in a building as it rots. Period. Your wealth depends upon the younger people. Hence, everyone, even people that say, I don't like kids, if you want to grow old and if you want to have some infrastructure around you, you have to view your resources and your savings, your capacity to give and to help other people have children as a national imperative. Hence, as we have more people right now choosing not to have children, or in gay relationships where they don't have children, the money just climbs in the savings accounts. Why are we taxing people less, and then the people who have spent less on taxes get to enjoy the fruits as they get older of healthcare systems, which are going to be staffed by people that were born to others. This, again, these are uncomfortable conversations that all need to be had, which never are had. By looking at a population pyramid, you can project the future. Right now in Japan, you can see a big surge of people in certain age brackets and then decreases. You can predict in 5 years and in 10 years and 20 years how many people approximately will die in Japan. You can predict years that will have more people dying than a previous year. You can predict years that will have less people dying than a previous year. What this means is that anybody who's honest has to say that in the year 1995, they knew, everyone looking at population pyramids knew in the year 1995 that in the year 2020 to 2025, there were going to be more elderly people in the United States and many other nations, and that there was going to be an increase in all-cause mortality. They knew it. They knew that there was going to be more people dying per year than previous years. They knew this. It was fact. And the only thing that could have changed it would have been an asteroid or a volcano. Because unless there's some miracle that allows people to live longer, the only thing that would have made it false is if something happened to cause even more deaths. And that's it. So what this means is that when Denny Rancourt or someone similar gets up on a stage and talks about, how many people died and how many people they expected to die, etc., he should be talking about what was known 20, 30, 40 years ago based upon what they were studying about population pyramids. You don't think it was already expected there to be more people dying, and for them to say, do you really think that knowledge of something like that is just going to allow to go underutilized? If you could predict, I don't know, somehow, okay, with certainty that there was going to be this baseball player that hit 2 home runs a game every game for 4 years, and you knew which team they were going to be on, all right? You don't think you would use knowledge of that only you had to place bets somewhere to make some money? So like the Back of the Future storyline? Of course you would use that. If you had knowledge of the future that nobody else knew, you would make use of that for your benefit. And the knowledge of more people dying at some point because of how age brackets progress through the population pyramid, that was going to be used. And they needed to tell a tale of deadly novel viruses, RNA pandemics, and things which only geneticists and immunologists could stop. A story which, when told properly, okay, was able to provide motivations to roll in gene therapy, motivations to create all of these massive computing grids that were necessary to advance, possibly, understanding of the human genome, and so on. They used this knowledge. Now, of course, knowledge like this could have also been used to encourage some nations or maybe some areas to say maybe 4 children is enough per family, and maybe some areas to go, other areas go, we're having a population imbalance here. With this other nation or this area, we need to, in order for their own betterment, okay, there should be encouragement to have more children in some other areas. Population pyramids can be used for things such as that, subtly, okay. But in this case, but how much money is there? How much money is really around to help some people just live better lives because that's what God would want? There's almost no money out there for that. But when it comes to how much money is there to take control, potentially, of the evolution of the human species through research and development, better understanding of the human genome, there's almost no limit on the number of zeros. So, of course, knowledge like this is going to be used. Now, another nation I think is really, really cool to look at is, let's look at demographics of Taiwan. Taiwan is awesome. Taiwan is almost nobody being born in Taiwan anymore. So Taiwan has, in the 50s, now I know Taiwan overall is a smaller country, 24 million people, approximately 23 million people total population. But they had, last year, 70,000 males born and about 70,000 females born. Last year, their total population was birth rate was Look at this, 0.04%. 5.8 births per 1,000 people. That is horrible. That is horrible. That means out of every 200 females, there was only one birth last year in Taiwan. Out of every 200 females, there was only, is that right? Yeah. That's horrible. No, is that, say 5 goes into 1,000, my goodness, this is 2,200 times. Yeah, 1 out of every 200. That is horrible. Taiwan is doomed. So this population in the middle here, okay, between 20 to 40, is going to have even less children because of all the people that right now are in their 70s and 50s. I've made a joke before, and it's not literally true, okay, but it's not far off track, though. Taiwan will have so few people in the future because so many people are going to get old and die, and their capacity to have young people, have children, is so reduced that if China wanted to, they will be able to just walk in and take it. There won't be anybody there. Anyone talking about the future of Taiwan and protecting Taiwan against China is wasting their time and wasting your time if they're not talking about the fact that in the future there will be nobody in Taiwan. It's that bad. In one of the worst countries out there, even worse than Taiwan, is South Korea. South Korea, no, I want South Korea demographics. Wow, South Korea's population pyramid is insane. Their birth rate is even less than Taiwan. In fact, 2.4%. They have so many old people, and their birth rate is so low that they have 2% less people every year in South Korea. Can you imagine that? Every year they have 2% less people because they have so many people dying, in the elderly range versus being born. And it's only going to get worse. Last year, with a population of 51 million people total right now, last year they had less than 200,000 births. 51 million people and less than 200,000 births last year. South Korea is on a path to not exist in 100 years. You want to look at, but hilariously though, North Korea, that everyone loves to talk about, is growing. Now, North Korea has half the population of South Korea at 25 million, but they have some semblance of a population pyramid. I thought everyone in North Korea was just starving on the side of the road. North Korea is growing. North Korea demographically has a future, and South Korea doesn't. I'm not telling you communism is good. What I'm telling you is that in 100 years, there will be people in North Korea, and there will be no people in South Korea. You can argue all you want about communism and freedom and family sizes. You can argue about the left versus right. You can argue about whatever it is you want. But if there's no people, it doesn't matter what form of government who they have. If there's no people, it's done. Of course, North Korea, 25 million people, still has a lower number of births than the United States. Of course it does, but it's vastly higher than South Korea. North Korea has half the number of people as South Korea overall, but it has more than twice the number of babies. and it's growing. And although I've never been in North Korea and I've heard all the stories about North Korea has families. And South Korea, they have to have, the government is getting involved in getting people to go on dates with each other because they're spending so much time going on trips and eating food and probably alone watching porn on television and so on, playing video games that nothing's happening. It's becoming a national initiative just to get people to go on dates in South Korea. And now let's get to the elephant in the room, India. Now, India has a slightly inverted population pyramid. Slightly. Okay? Their population, the number of people in India, in like age between 0 and 1, is a little bit less than people that are in their, how would you say, their peak family growth years. But India last year, let's say people who were born last year, they had about 22 to 24 million people born in India last year. Now, 23 million people were born in India last year. 23 million people. Last year, the United States had, 3.5 million. So, for every child born in the United States last year, there were almost 7 or 8 children born in India. 7 or 8 for every one American. If for the 58 age range, remember 58 age people in their 58s, there were 4 million Americans in that age range. There's 20 million people in China in that age range. But age 58, India has 12 million people. So people age 58 specifically, while there are 4 million people, I should say, while there's three people in India in that age for every one in the United States, China, on the other hand, has 5 or more in that age range for every one American. China has way more people in that age range than India, meaning China's older. So, yeah, China has, China's population, while equivalent still in India, is older. And it's going to be able to work less. And China's birth rate is much lower. It's only about 40% of India's, or I should say, birth rate. India has a future demographically. They have children, and they have families, and they don't have a massive upcoming burden in the next 20 years of elderly people. China does. China's doomed. India isn't. India has money. India has youth. India has the culture and the mindset required amongst many people in India to expand. I heard Jonathan say, someone told him today that China has had 10,000 years of civilization where they have yet to, conquer the world. At some point, it's like, I don't think China's going to conquer the world. They've grown their borders from time to time. They've had disputes. But at some point, it's like, I think maybe China building some train stops in Nigeria is just China working with Nigeria to get some resources. At some point, China is China. The India mindset is not that. There are no people who are born in China who are running the United States government right now. The United States, on the other hand, has multiple people who are born in India in key positions of United States political power. Several United States congressmen and women were born in India. The United States, COVID-19 broke out in the United States, in the Snohomish County area, by an area that was overseen by an Indian national who was representing the United States, who was elected to the United States as a congresswoman. Much of the evidence that COVID-19 came out of China came out of India. Most of it, actually. No one likes to talk about that. The United States National Institutes of Health right now is run by an Indian national, Jayanta Bhattacharya. The United States FBI is run by a Ugandan who's really an Indian. It is what it is. The United States vice president is married to an Indian woman, although she was born in the United States, who is welcomed with open arms into India. One of the most damning people that I've ever researched in my entire life was a former ambassador to India, Richard Verma, that no one will ever mention exists, who is maybe a fine person himself, not born in the United States, but connects so many dots of Hillary Clinton, emails, Pakistan, Iran-Contra, and going all the way back to 9/11, gene therapy, etc., etc., etc. No one will talk about it, and it's only going to get more and more pronounced. There's a lie right now that much of the fentanyl that hits the United States is coming out of China, but for some odd reason, the Chinese find it convenient to ship it to the United States through India. I think that's just a lie. I think the reality is that it comes out of India. And if you look at the United States, the areas that have the highest number of drug overdoses, they tend to be red districts and in swing states. Very odd that red states that aren't considered swing states, not as much of a problem. It's mostly red districts and swing states, almost as if it's being put there intentionally. And with this type of political power, this type of a future, and so on, why shouldn't we consider it? We've been encouraged in the United States of America right now for several years to think that Russia and you should see Russia's population pyramid. It's a comedy. They have no future. Almost no one in Russia is having children anymore. Russia's doomed. India's not doomed. Pakistan's not doomed either. But Pakistan right now is in a very interesting conflict with India that I think has multiple layers. I do not think that it's just a show fight. There's real conflict going on there, which I think people should follow up, and I will do more on that in the future. Everyone that has failed to talk about population pyramids should be dismissed. You should give them maybe one last chance. Say, why don't you make this a key part of your messaging? And if they don't, and if they say no, never listen to them again. Demand every penny you gave to them back. Every penny. Because they should be talking about this regularly. It shows intent. It shows how the people that haven't been mentioning this regarding understanding COVID are also taking money to lie about why people die for the machine. You can see the future. You can see which countries are threats and which ones are not. I don't think China's a threat in the future because they have so many problems. Why would a country that has almost no capacity to even have a replacement population be thinking about how to take over companies in Framingham, Massachusetts? It's stupid. It is just stupid. Look at the countries that are growing and that do have a demand for more worldwide resources, that would have a desire to infiltrate the United States and take control over the United States Navy from a political standpoint. How many nations have the money? How many nations have the education? How many nations have the population? How many nations already have the number of people established? And you're left with only one nation that meets the criteria. Only one, and it's India. It's the only one. That's the truth. You can talk about Epstein till the cows come home, but Israel is a very small country with a very unimpressive population pyramid and really not a whole lot of money. Israel and the whole Epstein thing is just hoax. And isn't it odd that in the United States we have Ro Khanna being at the forefront pushing the Epstein story? No surprise at all. As well as other citizen journalists that talk all the time about, guess who? Pakistan. No surprise. So that's my little show for today. Who knows where that goes from here? The meltdown in social media, it causes me strain. I won't stress. I'll just be upfront about it because I see people that are willing to lie about why people die. and lying about the opioid epidemic in the United States, in turn allowing more people to die, causing more pain for more Americans in the future. And I have to just believe that they just don't understand the consequences of their lies. They're just lying for money. They're just acting without really a care in the world as to what it does. I, on the other hand, feel the pain of these things. I see the pain. I felt the pain, and I get very, very angry and very upset knowing the consequences of these pains. There's many days I don't have a good time. I don't have a good time because I know how people die because of the lies that are told by many people who participate in the hoax and the mythology of what they say is citizen journalism. I don't enjoy that. And I don't understand why other people should be having so much fun at it. A laugh from time to time is good. Some dark humor, absolutely. But and the people who follow this should feel the same way and should ask others why they don't feel the same regarding journalists, citizen journalists. So that's it for everyone. Thank you. Take care. Thank you for listening. Can't believe that 1 hour and 20. It's amazing. Have a great weekend. I'll try to be doing some more stuff. Take care and God bless.